Hello everyone, and today we're going to be talking about the Panic Attack from TF2. It's a multi-class shotgun that can be used on the engineer, the heavy, the soldier and the pyro, and in my opinion it's the worst shotgun in the game. But whether I convince you of that or not, we'll see by the end of the video. First let's discuss the stats of this weapon. So they're overly complicated, I'll just simplify them down for now. Now the shotgun does more damage at close range than stock, but it does less damage at longer ranges, as a consequence of the fact that each individual shell from the Panic Attack does less damage than a stock shotgun shell. It's also much more consistent, as Uncle Dane pointed out in one of his videos, because it has a fixed bullet spread, which is not the default inside of casual servers. Random bullet spread in casual is turned on. It also has a 50% faster deploy speed, and yep, I think that's pretty much it. So why is this shotgun useful or not useful? Now, shotguns are used on several classes in TF2, in fact almost half of the game's classes, and only one of these classes, the Engineer, uses this as his primary weapon. I am of the opinion that compared to other classes, Engineer gets one of the least uses out of the Panic Attack, and this is for the simple reason that if Engineer is engaging with someone in mid-range combat, he often has no better option than his shotgun, and the Panic Attack at mid-range does about the same amount of damage as you would expect a water pistol to do. You might argue as a counter-argument, of course, that shotguns are meant to be used at close range, but I differ, because in TF2 there's this mechanic which tends to be hated on, called random crits. Now, what this means essentially, well, of course you already know, it's widely discussed in the community, but just to go over it for those of you who don't know, random crits mean that any weapon has a chance of dealing triple damage at any time, randomly, and melee weapons have around a 60% base critical hit chance. I think that is the case with some melee weapons, is that correct? Yeah, it's based on the amount of damage you deal, I think, but anyway, what I'm getting at here is it's not important. The fact is that any melee weapon has the chance to randomly deal around 195 damage for no reason at close range. At that range, you might as well pull out your melee and hope for the best, rather than resorting to your shotgun. Because frankly, who wouldn't take the 195 damage melee hit over the 100-ish damage shotgun shell if all of your pellets connect? Now, of course, this isn't hating on the shotgun at all. There are numerous advantages of using a shotgun, such as you can finish off opponents who aren't within melee range, melee weapons don't always random crit, etc, etc. But personally, I think at that range you may as well be pulling out your melee weapon and hoping for the best, compared to using your Panic Attack. What I find the shotgun to be most useful for is when you run out of ammo. Rather than having to reload your rocket launcher, you have an inherent advantage in Soldier 1v1s, because you're able to switch to a backup source of damage to deal damage to your opponents. Now let's imagine a Soldier 1v1, in which two soldiers run at each other, they both hit a few splash rockets, then they're out of rocket ammo. One of them switches to the Panic Attack, one of them switches to stock, and the one using stock shotgun will virtually always win that engagement, because of the fact that the stock shotgun soldier can simply put out more damage at mid-range, and provided the stock soldier doesn't simply walk towards the Panic Attack soldier, they will always have the advantage because they're able to back up at the same rate the Panic Attack soldier can chase them to try and get within their optimal damage dealing range. Now we have two more stats on the weapon to talk about, and the last is the most crippling, so I'll save it for last. The next stat which we have to talk about is an upside, and that is the fact that the weapon deploys 50% quicker. I have a soft spot for weapons that deploy and holster faster, because I like comboing, but fundamentally I just don't think this is that relevant a lot of the time. Like, yes, it can give you the advantage, it can let you knock someone up in the air, say with your rocket launcher, and then you can finish them off. But at the same time, the stock shotgun fulfills that purpose just as well. So does a second rocket, so does anything really. Any source of damage pretty much can deal the same job of finishing off a weakened player after you've hit them with a rocket or whatever it might be. I know I'm talking primarily about Soldier here, but on Engineer the stat's even less impactful because it's his main damage dealing weapon most of the time. It's not like you're going to be comboing anyone as Engineer necessarily, at least not most of the time. So I think it's basically useless on Engineer, that stat. On Soldier, it's probably not the most impactful, at least I find it rarely to be useful as on Soldier. And on the other classes, I must confess I have not tried this stat out enough. But let's move on to the most crippling downside, which is that successive shots become less accurate with the panic attack. Now, this is just the most crippling downside. It means that instead of being able to pump people full of lead at mid-range with a reliable backup option, you have to resort to reloading between every shot to reset your bullet spread, which is just so annoying. Otherwise you will find yourself putting out a pittance of damage at mid-range, and even if you do manage to shove it right up in someone's face, you would have been better almost 100% of the time going in with a rocket launcher if you're playing soldier, a minigun if you're playing heavy. If you're playing pyro, you might as well just use your flamethrower, and if you're playing engineer, I don't know what you're doing standing right next to people with your shotgun anyway. I mean, you know what I mean? The majority of fights, shotgun fights with engineer, will be more mid-range type stuff, and at that range you will be better off using stock objectively because of the fact that the panic attack is just weaker where successive firing is concerned. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Please let me know what you think in the comments, and until then, goodbye.